Deal analysis, the number one critical skill every multifamily investor must know. Want to take your investing career to the next level? Then check out Think Multifamily's Deal Analysis Workshop. For more information, go to thinkmultifamily.com/DAW. This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, we have packed a few different shows together that we call highlights to help you to get the most bang for your time in educating you on the topics that you want to learn from. We would love to hear from you. I am grateful that you are with us today. Have a blessed day. Our guest is John Casmon. Thanks for being on the show again, John.
Whitney, thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to be able to come back.
Let's just jump in and to some of the things you've learned, some of the things you have perfected, and even helping others to raise capital in this business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, the very first thing is that mindset, right? There's people who come into it and say, hey, I want to raise $5 million. And there's people who say, hey, I want to buy real estate, but I don't have all the money I need to buy real estate, right? So there's a mindset thing. And part of what I found is, you really do have to come into this with the right mindset. And what I mean by that is it's not about you and what you want to get out of it. It's really about helping other people and serving other people. And that took me a while to figure out myself, right? Because I built my own personal portfolio starting out. I had a $1.5 million personal portfolio. I finally got to the point where, I was talking to other people, other more successful investors, and they all told me, listen, if you really want to scale, if you really want to grow in multifamily, it is truly a team sport. You have to partner with other people if you're going to scale. So that made me shift my mindset from, how do I get extra capital to help me do this deal to, okay, what value can I provide to someone else so that they're willing to partner with me, even as a limited partner, even as a limited investor who's just doing capital. But it does take a shift in mindset because there's unnecessary pressure on yourself if you feel like you are asking people to help you, right? It's like asking for a donation for a cause, or maybe doing like a multi-level marketing thing where you're trying to get these people together and you're trying to convince them that, hey, this is a great thing you want to do. You want to get into it, right? And that's not the position you want to be in. And if you've ever felt trepidation when it comes to connecting with other people, raising capital, or trying to get people to partner with you, it probably comes from the fact that you feel like you're trying to convince someone that you have something that they want or that they need, versus coming from a position of serving them and letting them identify whether or not it's a product for them. It's just like if I decided to become a baker, I wouldn't try to run around and get all of my friends and family to buy cakes from me. But what I would do is say,
take it back,
hey,
take it back now.
yeah. But what I would do is I would reach out to them and say, hey guys, I'm opening up a bakery. Do you know anyone who is interested in cakes? Some of the clients that are ideal are anyone who has a birthday coming up, anyone who has a wedding coming up, or anyone who has any kind of anniversary. So if you can identify the types of people who are best clients for yourself, then you can make it easier on the people in your direct network to help you grow your business. It's the same thing when it comes to raising capital for deal. It's not about going to get your aunt or your uncle or your grandma or your best friend to invest with you. It's about sharing what you do, helping them understand who is the best client or customer or, contact for your business. Who do you serve? Who do you help? And then allowing them to help you identify who that core person is.
Nice. So important, right? Know who you're marketing to, right? You have to know that. Identifying your client or in our case, our investor. Are there some keys there that are points that you could elaborate on that helps that person to identify who that is? We can't market to everyone, right? And it's said like you market to everyone, you market to no one, or, something like that. So how do we narrow that down? And, are we thinking too small? I hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm narrowing it down too much, or there's not going to be enough people. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think first and foremost, there's a big difference between who you target, right? And I call it like my bullseye target versus who your actual clients are. And I'll take this back to my marketing days, right? So I used to work on marketing for the Buick brand and also for another brand that I won't mention directly. But for Buick in particular, I was a part of the team that we were charged with getting the brand younger. When I took over, it was essentially seen as an older person's car, right? It was, the average age was like 59 or 60 or something like that for the driver. And we were like, geez, like, how do we attract a younger person? Now, that wasn't who we were targeting, right? We were going after a younger person in all of our marketing and everything we were doing, but the people who were buying just happened to be older. So sometimes who you're messaging or who you're going after doesn't necessarily match up to who actually is buying your product, right? And I'm speaking more broadly. Obviously, we're talking about real estate investing, but this is marketing in general. You have brands that come out and they say they want to go after, a soccer mom or whatever the case may be. And maybe teenage boys love the product and it takes off with that group. You just never know, right? So sometimes what you have to do is you have to go after somebody. You have to put a fork in the road and make a decision of who your product is best for. And then you have to listen to the market. Who's really getting benefits? What do they love about it? Why do they love it? And then you have to find people who are like minded based on that. So, to bring this to something practical from an investor standpoint, I might say, hey, you know what? I think commercial brokers, they're already in the space. Many of them fully understand real estate investing. I know a few commercial brokers. I'm going to start there. Now, you may realize that, hey, you know what? There's only a handful of commercial brokers that I have relationships with. So maybe I need to expand this. Well, if you expand it, maybe it's folks who are in the commercial real estate industry. So it's not necessarily about brokers, but the fact that they already understand commercial real estate. So that's one less barrier you have to overcome. Or maybe it's doctors if you're a doctor or engineer or something like that. So you want to figure out who it is, but you don't want to limit yourself to say, hey, I'm only going to talk to doctors. I'm only going to connect with these individuals because there's a psychographic element of what those folks are looking for. If you can figure out what that is, and it may be things like creating generational wealth. It may be things like, hey, I'm going to work hard in my day job, but I want the flexibility to be able to retire at some point before I'm 50 or 55 years old. So if you can understand what common themes there are across that investor profile, now you can identify other groups or subgroups that may resonate with your message as well.
So should we be ready to say pivot and market to a different group if that's who we're attracting, or should it, at that time we should revamp how we're marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, ultimately, it comes back to who you want to serve, though. I think part of this is if you just want investors, then certainly you can go after that. But if you want to serve a community, then you're going to have to figure out who do you serve, how do you serve them, and get your messaging right. Because ultimately, you can sell whatever product to whoever's buying it, but that may not give you the fulfillment that you're looking for. If you're trying to help people with economic impact or create generational wealth or educate people on the opportunities that exist, then you have to find ways to connect with those individuals. And part of that, and I mentioned building your tribe, part of that is understanding who's going to be most receptive to your message. And, you can fight that if you want to, but, if you can understand who's going to connect with you, who resonates with your message, that allows you to build. And I think ultimately that's going to make you feel good about the work you're doing because you're going to come from a position of serving people as opposed to just simply trying to raise the capital you feel like you need for your deal.
Nice. Okay, so we've thought about the mindset and just identifying our clients. What are some next actionable steps or things we need to keep in mind?
Well, I mean, I think there's three C's that I think it takes to attract capital from investors. Okay, and the first one is confidence. The second one is credibility, and the third is connections. Now, when I say confidence, I'm not talking about blind hubris and just thinking you can do anything. What I'm talking about is preparation, making sure that you've educated yourself. You're listening to podcasts like this. You're reading books. You're attending events. You're doing everything you can to build your own confidence, right? And that's going to make it a little bit easier for you to have conversations with people because you'll know what you're talking about. You've talked to other people, you've understood how deals are put together. You understand how to, look at exit cap rates and compare that to the risk adjusted inflation. I mean, you're starting to really understand these deals. So that's going to help you be more confident. And that confidence is going to bring comfort, so you can speak with more confidence, you can be comfortable and have conversations with people. Now, on the second one, when it comes to credibility, I think a lot of people get hung up because they'll say, well, I've never done a deal, right? So, or maybe I've done a couple single family deals or something like that. So, how can I come across credible? Well, you may have other experience that translates. So, for me, for instance, before I started doing larger apartment deals, I was in corporate America working in marketing and I oversaw 6, 7, 8 figure marketing budgets for some large brands and overseeing these campaigns with, our metrics that we needed to see. So while I didn't have experience doing large apartment deals, I did have experience managing teams. I oversaw 7 different agencies. So I understood project management, I understood budget management, I understood marketing. So you can leverage the real experience you do have and use that for credibility as well. So those skills are transferable. And the other piece is, again, this is a team sport. So even though you may not have done the deals yourselves, you can align yourselves with other people. Get a mentor, get a coach, get a partner, bring on property management, bring on contractors, build a team that actually does have the credibility that you're looking for. So the credibility, the confidence, and then last is the connections. And that's going back to the investor profile, who you're trying to connect with, and figuring out how do you actually bring more of those people into your network and creating a system that allows you to not just connect with them one time, but to stay connected with them while you're looking for a deal.
What's the hardest part of that, those three C's for you, or getting to the point you are now? What's been the most difficult part?
Well, I think starting out, the confidence is the biggest thing for most newer investors, just because you just feel like you don't know what you don't know. And I think the one thing I will tell you is that, and Whitney, if you and I are being honest, there's still things that you and I don't know, right? It's
Uh,
just the reality. I
Plenty
mean,
of it. That's why we have the teams and the connections, right?
that's why we do the teams, the connections, the podcast. I mean, this is not just to share with the audience, but we want to learn too. We want to learn from everyone we come across, and we want to continue to elevate ourselves. So I think part of it with that confidence is not to belittle yourself or beat yourself up and live in self-doubt. You have to overcome your limiting beliefs. Get to a point where you feel like 80 to 85% of the material, and then you got to take action. You're going to learn from actually doing, not from listening to me and Whitney all day. So, you have to take action. So I think the confidence for most new investors is the biggest challenge, because they just feel like they just need to learn a little bit more. They just need to attend another event. They just need to read another book before they're ready to pull the trigger. And it's always going to be that. There's always going to be something that you don't know, and something that, in the back of your mind is telling you you're not ready. And you just have to ignore that and just really think about, how do you overcome those obstacles? And that's why I think the confidence and credibility really go together. Because if you have the confidence and you have the credibility, even if you're borrowing that credibility, that's going to make you comfortable to move forward. And I would say anybody who's confident and credible, or is confident but not credible, they're really just being cocky, right? Because if you don't have the credibility around you, you just assume you could go take down a 200-unit deal and you have no experience and you're trying to do it by yourself. You're just cocky and you're going to fall on your face. So you definitely want to make sure that you're taking all of those steps together.
Yeah, I love the three C's that you laid out, because I feel like they're so intertwined, and even, I mean, it is so important, right? You're talking about like having a mentor, having that team, having the people around you. I'd be the first to say I don't know everything about this business, but it's because of the team, right? That we've built, not myself. So confidence, credibility, connections. One thing about the credibility I wanted to ask you, reaching out, building that team, so you're kind of borrowing other people's credibility as well. Are there ways that you went about that helped you to be successful doing that? It's such a big piece of getting started in this business, is partnering with other operators usually. So or do you have any advice around that for the listener?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, you have to add value to other people, right? If you are trying to go out and work with other people and have them come on your team, there's a value exchange that takes place. So you have to understand that. And that's in everything. And it's something that's really big on the way networking and connections work in general. So if you are looking to go out there, one, I would strongly consider people to consider hiring a mentor or a coach. And the reason for that is, this really is a people business, and it's about relationships. And you want someone in your corner that you can ask all the questions you want to ask. There's going to be stuff. I don't care how many books you read. I don't care how many podcasts you listen to. When you are in the fire, you're evaluating a deal, you're trying to submit an offer, there's going to be questions that you have that you just can't keep calling and bugging people to get that answer, right? So it helps to have that person who has been through it. You're also going to get a little bit of trepidation. So it just helps to have that person in your corner who can settle you down, make sure you've looked at things the right way, and move forward. The other piece on partnering with other operators, that really comes down to building relationships, getting to know people, understanding what they do, figuring out how you can add value. And it should go beyond just hey, here's one or two things. You should figure out how do you actually get on the team, become a part of the team, and add value holistically. So that's something I think is really important as well, is figuring out how do you add value to a team. And that could be anything from analyzing deals, underwriting deals, following up with brokers. There's other steps that you can do. You don't have to necessarily come in and do everything, but you can play a role and add some value to a team. But I think the biggest thing is really about how do you add value? And if you position yourself in a way to say, hey, I want to add value, this is how I want to grow, that's going to make life a little bit easier. And that's why too I say if you hire a coach or mentor, you don't have the guilt where you feel like you're just taking. And I think sometimes people forget that it's a two-way street. If you're just taking from someone, asking them questions all the time, getting their advice on things all the time, but you're not really giving them any value back, that's not a position you want to be in either, because that's a one-way street. So you definitely want to make sure that there's a value exchange so both parties benefit from the relationship.
Thank you for being with us every day on the Real Estate Syndication Show. I've got a gift for you, but I want to ask that you will leave a written rating and review on iTunes. If you'll send a screenshot to info@LifeBridge Capital of that review and a mailing address, I want to send you one of my recommended monthly books. Our guest is Dave Dubeau. Thanks for being on the show, Dave.
Whitney, it's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, honored to have you on the show. I know your expertise and topic we're going to talk about today is very popular and very sought after amongst our listeners, and really anyone or any business, in the syndication business for sure. But Dave has been an entrepreneur since 1994 and has been a real estate investor since 2003. After failing miserably at his first attempt to raise capital, he applied intelligent marketing to the process and discovered a way to raise money without rejection. And we want to get to that in a big way or in depth today. But since then, he's raised millions for his own deals and has helped his clients cumulatively raise hundreds of millions for their own deals. Dave, welcome to the show. That skill set alone is something that it takes some time, takes some thought, takes lots of hard work, no doubt about it. And there's, when I first started, you think there's all these people raising all this money. And what I've come to learn is that there's not as many people that can raise many millions as you may think. But, you've created a process and intelligent marketing. Looking forward to getting into that. I want to jump in to that marketing piece that you're talking about.
Sure.
This intelligent marketing. I know the listeners' ears are peaked right now, thinking, okay, I want to know how to do this, what Dave has done. Walk us through some of that, and how you're helping other people also, raise money like this.
Yeah, well, that's a really good point, Whitney. So a couple of foundational principles that go around this. And after that experience, I said, I don't want to be in this situation again where I've got a deal and then now I'm scrambling after the investors, I'm scrambling after the money, because that's just really, really bad positioning. That's when you're needy, you're desperate. And Steve Chandler says needy is creepy, and it definitely is, right? So your investors, even if it's a really good deal, it kind of turns them off if you're chasing after them. Does that make sense? So
it does.
Money in the deal, I always say the money comes first. Have your investors lined up, ready to go. Have a bench of A-player investors biting at the bit to invest in your next deal, and then go get the deal, because now you've got the money to back you up. So that's the big picture there. Now, the first step in this, what I call money partner formula back there, it's really all about who are we going to be approaching. And Whitney, I know you've got a lot of big time syndicators. You've got people that are raising millions and maybe even billions for deals. But when it comes to like mom and pops just getting started with raising capital, I think the smartest group of people to go after are people that you have a pre-existing relationship with, right? People in your sphere of influence, your friends, your family, your coworkers, people from church, people from your civic organizations. You know them, they know you. In order for people to invest with you, they need to know you, like you, and trust you. When you start with this group, they already know you, they already like you. Now we just have to work on that trust factor. Does that make sense, Whitney? So
it does. It does.
Suggest we start with is that target group.
So people you already know, people that you already have part of that formula together, right? You already hopefully have a lot of that trust in place, right? They already know you, and hopefully they already trust you to some extent, but they may not trust you yet in real estate, right?
They'll trust you. They'll trust you to babysit the dog for the weekend, Whitney. They might not trust you with $100,000 yet. All right. So that's what we got to work on, that trust factor. Some of them will, but that's where we want to get started. And then we want to avoid that clumsy bull in a china shop thing that I did, which is, hey, it's Dave. I got a deal. Have you got any cash? So what we want to do first, this is the first part of marketing, and it's not really, it is marketing, but it's very intelligent. It's strategic marketing. It's not, hey, invest with me right now. It's setting the stage for everything that's going to come. So here's what we do with our clients that works really well, Whitney. And we do a very simple 3-step warm-up campaign, right? So when you're getting started, you got that target group, let's say 150, 200 people that you got that pre-existing relationship with. Let's start off by reconnecting with them on a personal level first before we start talking business. So what I always recommend people do is get those contacts uploaded in some sort of email autoresponder system. There's a ton of them out there, or CRM or what have you. And then write a really personable kind of email. Catch people up on what you've been up to for the last 3, 4, 5 years. Very, very personal. If you're married, the wife, the kids, remind people of names and ages, what you're doing for work, what kind of trips you've been taking pre-COVID, perhaps what's been going on with your life with the whole COVID thing. Catch people up. I call this the Christmas letter from Aunt Nadine, because I don't know if you remember back in the day when people used to actually write letters before the interweb and all that stuff. Anyhow, it's that idea. It's a nice thing. And at the end of it, you say, hey, well, that's what I've been up to. How about you? I'd love to reconnect. Please just hit reply to this email and let's connect. So send that out to your couple of hundred contacts. And then here's the really important part, Whitney. Have genuine reconnections with those people when they reply back to you. Does that make sense? Because there's money.
Say that last part again. I think it's very important.
Yeah. Have a genuine connection with those people when they reach back out to you, right? Like, have some back and forth, because there's money in those reconnections, right? So that's the first one. We have 3 steps. Second one, the same idea, but a very short little video message. It's just a lot more personal. It just engages a lot more of the other person's brain. And again, at the end of it, say, hey, that's what I've been up to. Please hit reply to this email. I'd love to reconnect with you. Okay, so ding, the first one goes out 3 or 4 days later. The second one goes out. You're replying back to people. And then the third one is where the magic starts. And this is the transition message. So this last message, again, I recommend be a short little video message, is you give people the heads up that you're going to start switching gears and you're going to keep in touch with them, but you're going to start letting them know what you're up to with real estate investing. So it might go something like this. Hey, it's Dave. It's been really good reconnecting with you last week or so. I want to let you know that moving ahead, I plan on doing a much better job of staying in touch and letting you know what I'm up to with real estate investing. Real estate is something I'm really passionate about. I'm doing really well with it. In fact, I think real estate is the best way for everyday folks like you and myself to make an above average return on our money backed by a solid, tangible asset, a real piece of property. And who knows, maybe sometime in the future, you might even want to partner with me and share in the profits on a deal. But you know what? If you're really not into real estate investing, that's okay. You can always click unsubscribe at the bottom of any of my emails. You'll be taken off my list immediately. My feelings might be hurt for a little while, but I'll get over it eventually. All right. In the meantime, if you haven't had a chance to get back to me, please hit reply to this email. I'd love to catch up. Send that one off. All right. And now what we've done there, Whitney, is we've had some genuine reconnections. We've got the ball rolling, and we've primed the pump to start the marketing. Does that make sense?
It does. So is this, we only move forward if they've gotten up to that third reply? Is that, people who say never responded the first time, what are you doing with that with them?
I keep them in there because, again, this isn't a cold list. These are people that you have a genuine reconnection with. To be perfectly frank with you, if you've got 200 people on your list, you're doing pretty well if you get 30 or 40 replies. All right. It's not like all 200 are going to jump at the bit and reply back to you. Plus, you're not sending these out individually using an email autoresponder. So some of them end up in junk mail and that kind of thing. But, you're on average, you're probably going to get 30 to 40 replies there. Surprisingly enough, you're probably only going to get 4 or 5 people opting out of your 200. That's the pleasant surprise. Very few people actually opt out because you already have that connection, right? Now they might opt out a little bit over time, but again, you're going to be meeting people and bringing them in. So it's an ongoing process. But that's
nice.
That's the first kick of the can. That's kind of the pre-marketing marketing.
Okay, so now you've told them, I'm going to keep you up to date. I'm going to tell you about my real estate deals. Maybe we can partner in the future. What's next?
Yeah, so we just got to get that tickle. So here's what's next. You got to be ready in case some of them actually reach out and say, hey, Whitney, what's this real estate thing you're doing? Cool, I'm interested. Because most people go, now what, right? So the next step is make sure you got a good investor presentation put together. So when somebody reaches out, you've got something to show them. And I usually recommend, especially for people just getting started, a slideshow presentation, a little PowerPoint presentation. Doesn't have to be too long, but it walks people through the whole process. And here's something really important for your listeners and viewers to keep in mind, is at least, especially at this level, most of the people that you're reaching out to are not, and don't take me the wrong way, they're not real estate weirdos like us. Okay, I say that with love and affection, but you know what I mean, right? Because you and I, we spend a lot of time in podcasts, we're talking to other real estate investors, but the general public isn't like us, right? So we got to keep that in mind. So all of our communication, all of our marketing needs to be pretty Reader's Digest level, right? It's for adults, but it's written at a level that an average 13-year-old can understand it. That's my philosophy around all of our real estate marketing. Keep it pretty simple. Keep it edutaining, a little bit educational, a little bit entertaining. Because again, the people that are getting this, they're not real estate keeners necessarily like us. They're average folks. All right. So
I think that right there is very wise. It's just great advice. Keep it simple. Because if your investor is confused at all, what's their answer going to typically be?
no.
No, that's right.
But no thanks. Yeah. A confused mind always says no. Yeah. So that's so have that presentation ready to go. So when people start reaching out, that's great. Now, Whitney, my whole philosophy about raising capital without rejection revolves around this, that we do all of this marketing and we encourage people to reach out to us instead of us chasing after them. We encourage people to click on our calendar and book an appointment with us, because that conversation is a complete 180 from you or I desperately chasing after somebody, trying to convince them to take a look at our presentation. Does that make sense? That's the whole thing.
It does.
Is get them to come to us instead. So have that presentation ready. Next step is, okay, let's start kicking things into gear with some marketing. So all sorts of things you can do here. I suggest everything should start with a really good investor-focused website. That can be your online marketing hub, right? Everything comes from it. Everything brings people back to it to consume your marketing. And then everything leads people to click on that big green or blue button, contact us, which then takes them to a booking page to book a meeting with you.
Dave, what about just the biggest challenge you find most clients have in getting to that, that first raise and being successful?
I think it gets down to confidence, really, Whitney, at the end of the day, not feeling worthy, right? This is the big thing, right? They listen to your podcast, they see these rock stars come on that have raised gazillions of dollars and have thousands of units in their portfolio, and they go, how can little old me, how can I get started raising capital? I've only got 2 properties in my portfolio. I've only, I'm not worthy, right? If you remember the old Wayne's World, right? So what people need to realize is that the vast majority of the general population has never invested in a revenue property in their lives. The stat I've seen is 95% of the general population has never purchased an investment property. Their own house does not count. I'm talking about an investment property. So if you've got one deal under your belt, you are already light years ahead of 95% of the non-real estate people that you know, right? So that's big. So use that confidence. It's kind of like if you remember way back to kindergarten, Whitney. I don't know if you remember way back then. You looked at a kid that was in grade 2 or grade 3, and it's like, oh my goodness, this kid's amazing. They're a superhero, right? They can tie their own shoes. They can write their name. They can add 2 + 2. So compared to you in kindergarten, where you're still having nappy time and eating cookies, that seems amazing. So it's the same thing. You don't have to have a ton of deals under your belt to start raising capital. As long as you're doing good deals, as long as you're providing massive value for your investors, as long as you got regular communications with them, you should go forth with confidence and start raising capital. And in my mind, the other big hiccup a lot of people have is they say, I don't want to mix friendship and family, friendship and business, family and business. That's a recipe for disaster. Yes, it can be if you do it wrong. However, here's my suggestion for that. If you're working with friends or family, even if it's your brother, even if it's your mother, even if it's your adult child, whoever it is, treat it as if they're a complete stranger, right? So what would you do? How would you have things set up if that person were a complete stranger? You wouldn't be doing a deal on a spit and a handshake. You'd have the appropriate legal paperwork put together, joint venture agreements, contracts, what have you. You would have the other person would insist on getting independent legal advice. Well, make sure your friend or your family member does the same thing. They would want to get regular reporting. They would want to have regular meetings. So do all of those same things, even if it's your parent, even if it's your sibling. Does that make sense? So set it up professionally, and then have the conversation ahead of time. Let's say Whitney, you and I are really good friends, and you weren't the real estate expert that you are. You're just a regular person, and we decide to work together. The conversation I would have is, Whitney, we're going to be working together on this. That's great. We're going to be meeting on a regular basis, quarterly or biannually, whatever it is, right? So let's do that. Let's keep business. And then when we get together for the 4th of July long weekend, let's not talk business. Let's just have our friendship be our friendship, or our relationship be our relationship. Does that make sense? So have that conversation up front, do all of that, set it up for success, and you'll be well underway.
Thank you for being with us again today. I hope that you have learned a lot from the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you're telling your friends about the Real Estate Syndication Show and how they can also build wealth in real estate. You can also go to lifebridgecapital.com and start investing today.